Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
And we're taking a look at Court of the Dead, Mourners Call by Project Raygun that's currently on Kickstarter right now. Already blasting through stretch goals, raised like $250,000. Oh yeah, people have just been doing this. But if you haven't heard of this game before, if this is your first time seeing it, stick around because there is a lot to love about this game.
So I'm not going to bore you guys and go through all the rules and teach you how to play it before we talk about it. We're going to jump into it and talk about the meat of the game and what we experienced and how much we like it.
But what I will do is tell you one game that I can compare this to. It was what I was thinking of when I was playing is Star Wars Rebellion, or to a lesser extent like War of the Ring. Just the idea that there were a lot of things here that were pretty specific. So we're going to call it an area control game, even though it's not super duper exact. It's close.
It's a little bit area control, but
a little bit of
when we're talking, it's kind of worker placement by whoever has the most control in an area at the end of the round gets to take the action there as if it were like a worker placement game. So it's like a delayed worker placement.
Yeah, it's like an area control, but whoever controls that area then gets that stuff. But also, a lot of the cards and a lot of the missions and things you're trying to do are pretty specific, and that reminded me of like Rebellion or War of the Ring, where like, you know, the cards will say, oh, if you have this many rebels in this area, you get to do this, or like the whole, if Darth Vader is over here, this happens. But in here, it'll be like, you know, hey, if you can have 2 of your units in the blue cities, you'll get this for like the remainder of round, or this card will allow you to remove a city, a dude from a city, so you know, you kind of have to set that up. It's probably not as specific as Rebellion or War of the Ring, but it felt to me to be kind of in that vein. Even like some of the Mourner cards would be like, you know, oh, well, you take or these are the Mourner cards. The court cards would be like, oh, well, this card specifically lets you take, you know, the first player token and then lets you do this, and this one lets you get this guy who can mess with things at the end. So it's not just like, you know, a drafting game where you're getting resources. You're drafting like pretty specific actions where you're like, well, am I going to need this type of influence, or am I going to need this? What am I going to spend it for? Like, there's an awful lot of pre-planning, right?
This game is definitely just a bunch of options thrown at you. So during the drafting phase, you're like, okay, of these 3 options, which action would I like to take? So you're like selecting these actions, but you don't have to take them. You know, that's kind of like the warm-up phase. And you're like, this is what I think I want to take, this is what I think I want to take. But then when, you know, stuff starts to go down during the actual action phase and people are taking actions, you know, somebody could get a what are the relics or the artifacts?
Yeah, artifacts, that stay out there.
That stay out there that give them victory points if you play a card. So then it may disincentivize you to play that card. You're like, oh, I'm going to give him these unity points, these victory points for playing this card. I don't know if it's worth it. And then once you play those cards, you're getting influence that you have to then either you're choosing between keeping them for victory points at the end, or what you're going to be using them mostly for is moving your units onto the board, and that is very powerful. And that's why it's influence. It's influential to, you know, get those guys out into certain areas, and you definitely need to kind of balance it if you're going to get multiple factions, which is really cool that everybody doesn't start with like one faction. You draft from all the factions.
Yeah, and it was almost like at first it was like, what's the point of like, you know, the ulterior motives, your like secret mission for the whole game. I was almost like, what is the point of the faction of it? One, I think they're kind of the ulterior motives kind of incentivize you to take things and do things in that faction. Like this would incentivize you to get more of the blue cards because you are the blue faction. But then also some of the Mourner cards instead will like give you a bonus if you are that faction. So like almost like in Magic, like Devotion to Black gives you more stuff. You know what I mean?
When I was playing as the spirit faction, like I was getting more and more spirit ones, and they were definitely like synergizing with each other and making me get more and more influence in the spirit, which was allowing me to take more spirit kind of actions and then, you know, gain more of them. Yeah,
but then you're really like, I kept looking. I actually had a big problem just spending my influence the second I got it. I was like, I have influence to move, boom, I'm moving over there. And like constantly fighting on the board, trying to get these areas, which at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, you only should fight for that area if you really need it, because that influence is such an important resource. At the end, I mean, having all 3 of those tracks can each be worth the different points that, like, each one can be worth 15 points. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. You definitely need to utilize the pass action if you're not 100% sure on what area you want to go to. You know, if you can see that everybody else has action cards in their hands or tons of figures still in their crypt, they're probably going to spend some of their influence to put them out. So if you only have a couple actions left and you're really trying to figure out what it's worth you to do, then you know, it's really good to pass. I did that a handful of times where I'd be like, I don't know, I want either this area or this area, but I kind of want him to strike first. So, you know, Will was the guy we were playing with. This is Will now.
Yeah, what's up?
No, we were playing this guy, Will, and he was like, we were neck and neck the whole game with, like, I could see all the unity points he had, and I'm like, I'm going to let him strike first and then trying to go to a different area so that I can at least get some benefit. I don't want him to cancel me out by us both having a figure there.
And it is interesting that, like, you know, it's one of those things where, think about in Pandemic, right? You don't win the game by wiping away all the diseases. You win the game by finding all the cures. So this is secondary to getting all the cards and finding the cube and finding the cures, right? You don't have to eradicate all diseases in Pandemic, base Pandemic at least. I know you played a lot of Legacy, so the rules are probably different for you. It's almost like this is secondary, but you certainly can't ignore it. So, like, there are a lot of things where... the area control, it's like...
And the underworld.
Yeah, in theory, like, a lot of these spaces I don't need per se. Like, maybe I don't need, you know, more... I mean, it's good to get more influence, but then again, I spend 1 influence to get over there to gain 2. You know, is it worth fighting for that? Is it worth taking a risk for 1 influence if, you know, you might not even get it anyways? You know what I mean? So it's like, but then again, you can't just let your opponents take all these spots and get all those benefits uncontested, because then what do you get? You know, you're just gonna like play cards that gain me 2, play cards that gain me 2. Dang.
So I'll go back to choices again. With the court cards, you have a choice on every single one of them. There's like a top action and a bottom action. So even when you do draft them, you still have a choice after you draft it. Like, do I want to use this top action, which could like... Some of them will increase the Celestial and then drop the Death Grip thing, or it'll be vice versa. It really depends on where you are at, and if you increase this, you're going to have to you're forcing everyone to spend more of their Etheria.
That is the one thing about this game is that all the words are so hard to say. Oh my god. Like, the cards are named, and the cards are named crazy things, and, like, other things will trigger off other cards. It's like, if someone plays the Kailaha card, I'm like, oh god, I hope they don't play that card. I don't want to have to read it.
Another choice that comes up a lot is how to spend your Etheria. If you have 5, you can spend all 5 of it to get one of the...
Mourner cards.
The Mourner cards, and you actually get this... ability, but then you get a random unit figure in that faction. Yeah. So
it's a 50-50 shot.
Exactly. But if you're trying to go for a specific guild down at the bottom, then you might want to just straight up buy your figure, and you only pay 3. So you get a discount. You don't get an ability with it, but you ensure that you have this influence in these certain guilds, because those guilds also give you a bonus. So there's like... It's kind of another, thing that you're fighting for, is to have the most influence by owning the most units of a certain type.
But it is funny the way that they trigger in order. So like this one that lets you kill a unit also triggers before the one where you gain a unit.
Yeah.
So like this last one is going to be the hardest one to contest, because you really need to be like, you either need to have both 5 and the 6, or you need to have 2 in the 6, so that way whoever wins the 5 can kill one of your dudes in the 6, but not both of them, so that you still have control. Like, so there are a lot of things that when you played it before, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know that, like, hey, these ones over here are the ones where if you win, you just get a unit. So, like, those are pretty powerful. Or, like, hey, the way that these trigger, make sure you don't just go, oh, I'm going to buy this, and then not look at that. This thing where you don't have to lose dudes from the dice rolls, that's pretty powerful too, because then I can just put a bunch of dudes there and be like, I don't care if this Death Dread's Grip whatever triggers, because you're gonna lose your dudes and I'm not.
Yeah, it's just this shield of protection if you have that guild, which is really, really powerful. They're all powerful in their own way. There's one that just gains you victory points. There's one that gains you more of the Etheria, so you're just, you can buy more things in the next round.
It's one of those games where everything is important. You want everything, and you can't get everything. So it's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, really.
Damned to the underworld.
A couple of things I do want to mention real quick about sort of like the art and the production value of it. First of all, obviously, we're working with the prototype here. So if you see in some of our pictures that some of these minis have gotten busted up a little bit in shipping, they're, really low quality right now. They're extremely brittle. I can just snap them like that, no problem. Your copy will not come like that at all. And obviously, if you've looked at the Kickstarter at all, you can just tell straight up that this is clearly not for kids. Some of this art is pretty dang dark. I feel like I shouldn't need to tell you that, but also I kind of feel a little bit obligated, just like Sorcerer. Like, the art is like, look, if you see the art, you should be able to tell, but like, just a forewarning, if hey, a buddy tells you, hey, you should check out this game called Mourners Call, and you're like, okay, I'm going to back it without looking at my phone.
Yeah, the art is very interesting, and there's a lot of cool things going on with, like, the graphic design, like, so there's the bone, the flesh, and the spirit, and they're, like, the three factions, and they kind of, like, if you take all of the faction icons, you kind of overlay them into each other, which makes, like, the main icon here.
I actually didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so, like, the bone is like the negative space in between all of the flesh, and then the spirit just kind of goes on top of it, and it has the skull and everything. So it kind of, they all fit together to make one. It's kind of interesting. I'm hoping that the player boards are a little bigger because these influence tokens kind of bump into each other.
Well, they're metal on the Kickstarter right now, so
yeah,
even then.
So yeah, it's gonna be better.
Everything is gonna be better.
Everything is better. The artwork of the board is really cool. It's very, like, I don't know what it is. I guess just the really bold artwork lines of the city is just really cool. Like, it just has a really eerie look to it.
It kind of reminds me of, like, heavy metal album covers. You know what I mean? Like, not as dark as, like, Slayer, like, but that kind of thing of, like,
almost like pentagram-ish looking things, but
it's like hardcore cartoons, I don't know, what's that, do you know the cartoon that's like a meme where it's just like the dude like this with the long hair and just says brutal? You know that? Okay. We'll
just
cut
put it
that
up.
out.
Just put it up. And
I'll Google it, that thing. Whenever somebody writes something hardcore, like somebody will put that picture of like brutal. Like, oh, this kid is allergic to peanuts and really wanted to know what a Reese's tastes like. So he stabbed his EpiPen, said call the nurse, and took a bite. And then somebody puts on that picture like, brutal. That's the most metal thing I've ever heard.
So if you didn't know, this game is actually made by Druid City Games.
It's actually, the Kickstarter is being run by James Hudson, who runs Druid City Games. So it's kind of relevant that I'm wearing this t-shirt. So just back off, okay?
I really enjoyed this game. I think if you play Blood Rage, you're really going to enjoy this game because it's very similar in the aspects of like drafting cards and, putting your dudes on the map. You're spending influence instead of rage, but there's a lot of similarities and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely like, there's not as much killing as in Blood Rage where you're like, oh, I'm going to put my guys here and I'm going to battle you and I'm going to kill your guys. You're just like, it's a little more low key and a little more.
It's more deterministic.
It's a little more political in here too. With like, because you're, when you're trying to fill this quota, you're blind bidding. You kind of you can make alliances, kind of, but there's only gonna be one ultimate winner. So, I think it's a lot of fun, and I think if you're on the fence, this is something you should get off the fence onto the side of all the people that are getting this game, or you're gonna feel left out.
So obviously, I had a blast playing this game. I still actually have yet to play Blood Rage, and I probably won't need to, since we'll probably just play this instead, or maybe I'll play it just so that some people get off my back about it. It is a really fun and pretty unique game, because again, we're calling it area control, but it's not because you can go to any area you want. This lake doesn't really mean much of anything. It's just kind of separating the spots so your dudes are on what spot. But like you can go wherever you want. It's kind of deterministic combat, but there's a lot of if-then scenarios, a lot of really specific goals that you're going to try to go for, but like they're really conditional, and there's a lot of like you said utilizing the passing, like, oh, I'm going to pass, hoping that you put your dude out first, and then, oh crap, he passed, so I lost my opportunity to do anything. So there really is a lot offered in this box. Also there's drafting too. Like, there's a lot of different aspects from other games that I really like, are all kind of mishmashed in here together, but kind of like the Avengers movies, it doesn't feel like any one thing is outshining the other, or that one thing isn't getting the screen time that it needs. You know what I mean? I think this game is just a slam dunk if you're looking for a really epic, really deep time. And this, like you said, it's not for intro gamers. It's for slightly more, obviously more mature theme, but for gamers who, you know, respect a really deep and really thinky game.
It's not extremely calculating, though. You're not, like, thinking, like, 10 turns ahead and, like, trying to, like, you know, if I collect these resources now, like, what can I build with it? And, like, you're not, like, making engines
Well,
and, like,
it's not
crazy.
a Euro game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of strategy and a lot of choices that you have to make in this game. And if you like games like that, you should scroll down and click on the Kickstarter link in the description box down below.
Or if you're already on the Kickstarter page, you can go ahead and scroll up to the top there and back this project. Grab yourself a copy while you still can.
Either way, you should subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. Yeah. And all these underworld cities are, you know, they're weird names too, so... You know,
no, the Dearth Forge.
That's
total normal sauce.
It's like,
Hey bro, where you going? Oh yeah, just go to the Dearth Forge. That's normal.